Today's khutbah is taken from chapter 111 of Al-Quran, entitled The Flame, Al-Lahab. Just to give you a brief synopsis of this chapter before we get a bit deeper into it. The chapter deals essentially with what is known today as Islamophobia. It narrates the story of a paternal family of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who had so much of hatred for the Prophet and his mission that their hatred consumed them, just as fire consumes wood. And as the British summer is upon us, and everyone having barbecues, we all know what the end product of fire on wood is, and that is, it turns to ashes, or essentially nothingness. The chapter also makes predictions about the end of the family whose flames of hatred for Islam did not stop at trying to injure or assassinate the Prophet, but they also conjured up all sorts of lies and conspiracy theories. The efforts of this family to destroy the Prophet and his mission was also felt by his followers, such as they were isolated, they starved them, some of them were beaten, and some of them even died. Today we see these efforts continue in the 21st century. As the head covering is banned in certain countries, we see protests against erecting minarets on buildings, preventing them from looking like mosques. We see derogatory cartoons about the Holy Prophet Muhammad on the internet. And even meat is being injected with pork and sold as halal. How can we forget the satanic verses many years ago, which maligned the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his wives? These will continue in the future, and the destruction of the family, as discussed in this chapter, is the prediction of those people who continue in their efforts to destroy Islam. So let us look at this chapter in a little bit more detail. This chapter was revealed at Makkah, and it is one of the earliest revelations. It depicts the end of the worshippers of falsehood who were inflicting upon the worshippers of the true God unbearable persecutions. They were inflamed with the hatred of the truth, and like flames, they blazed in hostility against the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this chapter, those who were blazing like flames of fire are warned that they would themselves become offerings to this very fire. Either they would suffer destruction in the fire of war in this life, or burn in the flames of hell in the next. Abu Lahab, the English translation is as follows: Abu Lahab's hands will perish, and he will perish. His wealth and that which he earns will not avail him. He will burn in the fire, giving rise to flames. And his wife, the bearer of slander, upon her neck is a halter, twisted rope. The word Abu Lahab means father of flames. This is an Arabic idiom which Abu, or father, means doer or possessor. If a particular attribute is preponderant in a person, then in order to highlight it, the word Abu, or father, is prefixed to it. For example, the meaning of Abul Khair, literally the father of goodness, really means a man who is a great doer of good. Similarly, Abu Shar, father of evil, means a very wicked man. Abu Jahal, father of ignorance, means a very ignorant man. Thus, Abu Lahab, father of flames, means the possessor of flames, or a man of fiery temperament. That is, one in whom the flames of anger and envy rage furiously. So by extension, anyone, whether today or even at that time, anyone who entertains enmity and hostility to the truth in his heart, and who consequently burns with flames of anger and rage, can be called Abu Lahab. Historically speaking, there is no doubt that this was the family name of the Holy Prophet's paternal uncle, Abdul Uzza, and this came about because he had a ruddy countenance, as if his face was throwing off sparks of flames. But in fact, so inveterate was his opposition to the truth and his hatred of the Prophet's mission, that the flames of rage and fury burned perpetually in his heart. So for this reason too, the nickname Abu Lahab given to him was most appropriate. So implacable was his enmity of the Holy Prophet that whenever the latter used to come forward to address pilgrims and preach the message of unity of Allah to them, Abu Lahab would follow him, telling the people that the Prophet was a liar. Even more, he would pick up stones and throw them at the feet of the Prophet with the intention of damaging them so that the Prophet would not be able to walk. Another example of this blind, uncompromising hatred can be gleaned from the following incident. When the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ received the verse of Revelation in chapter 26, verse 214, it states, "And warn thy nearest relative." He climbed on the top of Mount Safa and invited all the tribes one by one. And when they had assembled, he posed a question to them. He said, "Tell me, if I should inform you that there is an army behind this mountain ready to launch an attack on you, will you believe me?" All of them replied in the affirmative, saying that they had never heard him tell a lie, even since his childhood days, and that he was always truthful and faithful too. The Holy Prophet then told them, "I am inviting you to believe in one God, and I warn you of a severe punishment if you disobey him." On hearing this, Abu Lahab could not contain his rage and flung a stone at the Prophet. He shouted, "Woe to thee! Is it for this you have summoned us here?" But his evil intention to destroy the Holy Prophet was not limited to words. Day and night he was engaged in devising plans to harm and injure the Holy Prophet, to such an extent that many a time he attempted to assassinate him. We see also the followers of the Prophet having to undergo hardships for believing in one God. We all know the story of Bilal, who was placed in the blazing hot sand and a hot rock placed on him. Abu Lahab's wife, her enmity too, had exceeded all bounds, and her job was to broadcast lies against the Holy Prophet and to backbite him. It was the Prophet's habit to visit the Kaaba every night for devotion. She knew this, so she used to spread thorns on the road, so that in the darkness the Prophet's feet may be pierced by the thorns, and so become injured. In short, there was no limit to the evil and persecution, the rage and fury of both husband and wife. The hearts of both of them were ablaze with a fire that could not be cooled. Indeed, we see similar protests and character assassinations today. Not so long ago, we had women who were protesting in front of the Berlin Mosque, some of them semi-nude. What were they protesting for? Why does the hatred for Islam still continue today? When in response to the Prophet's invitation to the truth on Mount Safa, Abu Lahab threw stones at him with both hands, openly hurled them, and he was saying all sorts of bad words to him. Abu Lahab's hands eventually were broken, and he himself was destroyed. Here the past tense was employed for a future event, so that this prophecy would be circulated as an established fact. The reason that people might bear in mind that although it was a prophecy of a coming event, yet so certain was the eventuality that it be considered as something written and done with. It must be borne in mind that the Holy Quran in this chapter mentions the family of Abu Lahab as the original example of this kind of hatred to the Prophet Muhammad. However, it is not confined to Abu Lahab's family alone. Every person in whose hearts, even today, burns with envy and anger and hatred for Islam and the Holy Prophet is an enemy of the truth. He too can be called Abu Lahab on his account of the raging fire of hate in him. The two hands of Abu Lahab were cut off. The cutting off of the hands is a metaphorical expression, meaning that he would not have the power to do the Prophet any harm or the religion of Islam. Similarly, the metaphorical expression not only applied to Abu Lahab at the time, but even today. This is the important thing. This is what makes this verse of the Quran a living verse. Why? Anyone who tries to do the same thing to Islam today will suffer the same consequence. This is the prophecy of the chapter. When Allah the Most High said that Abu Lahab's hands were cut off, the meaning is that neither in the earliest days of Islam, when every pagan Arab was an Abu Lahab, or future could any harm come to the Holy Prophet and his religion from the sword of warfare, nor could they be exterminated, and neither could the future enemies of Islam, whether they be Christians or Muslims or even non-Muslims, who are the true successors of Abu Lahab, bring disgrace to our Holy Prophet. Interestingly, the Arabic expression tabat means to cut off, has been used in the Quran, and Allah is saying here, whatever you use, whether it is your hands, whether you use the internet, whether you use the media, it's symbolic of using whatever is at your disposal to destroy Islam. You will fail. So as an example for all times, the Holy Quran has chosen Abul Uzza, or this family in particular, as the first application of this prophecy, and has used the appellation Abu Lahab for him. In the Battle of Badr, interesting story, he contracted, this is Abu Lahab, contracted a heinous disease, which ironically made parts of his body turn red. And the burning agony of frustration and failure brought about by the defeat at Badr, he died 7 days after the encounter. Because he died of a highly contagious disease, even his own family members remained distant from the corpse. As a result, they requested some Abyssinians to remove the body and bury it. In the next verse, the Quran talks about his wealth and that which he earns will not avail him. This person, Abu Lahab and his wife, were extremely wealthy, but they were so miserly that his wife used to cut firewood and bring it and sell it to make even more money. They had amassed a large fortune, but that wealth availed them not. Neither did a whole family, neither did a whole lifetime spent in opposition to the truth and hatred of the Prophet bear any fruit for them. Thus, every Abu Lahab who gloats over his wealth and possessions he has accumulated in this life should take note that these things will turn out useless to him. And furthermore, all his pains to eradicate the religion of Islam and to discredit the Holy Prophet Muhammad will never succeed. Just as in the early days of Islam, Abu Lahab's wealth and exertions against the religion ended in failure. So today, Christians and other non-Muslims alike, who consider themselves or who have the same hatred as Abu Lahab, this is the outcome. After this, the Holy Quran draws our attention to the condition and the final end of Abu Lahab's wife in the words, and his wife, the bearer of slander upon her neck, is a halter of twisted rope. Let us see what this means. In other words, this refers to the wife of Abu Lahab who was mentioned first. Her name was Jamil. And like her husband, her animosity towards the Holy Prophet exceeded all limits. However, she never demonstrated this enmity openly, and this is interesting, but she did it secretly and habitually and engaged in all kinds of hostilities against the Prophet ﷺ. She used to spread thorns on the road, as I've mentioned earlier, to injure him. Moreover, she used to circulate all kinds of false rumors against him. We see this still today. People say that the Prophet is a pedophile. He married a 9-year-old. Still going on today. They have no idea about the outcome, what's going to happen to them. It was in reference to this ugly vice of hers that the Holy Quran gives her the title of hammalatal hatab, meaning literally the bearer of firewood. The beauty of eloquence and diction of this expression was explained earlier. That is because of her miserliness, meanness and greed. She used to cut firewood from the jungle with her own hands and carry it on her head in spite of her riches. She also used to wear a necklace of jewels. For this reason, the phrase hammalatal hatab has been taken first in the literal sense, that is, a bearer of firewood. However, the second meaning or the second application is figurative, which means a bearer of slander. One always finds aggressors to the truth divided into two groups. One will openly and be antagonist in public. However, there are some who would do it in secret. Instead of open warfare, they subversively apply themselves to hatching plots to extirpate the truth, and through slander and calumny, they continue adding fuel to the fire of enmity in order to keep it steadily blazing. So metaphorically speaking, these people are in truth carriers of fuel for this fire. The Holy Quran refers to this class of people as hammalatal hatab. We also see that some men who are cowardly in nature, they resort to these things. They spread rumors, they use the internet, they use the media, they write articles in the newspapers, and they spread rumors and hostilities this way. They are so afraid to go out into the public and voice their opinion. And the Quran uses a beautiful Arabic expression in this chapter, meaning that they are men who develop women qualities in this respect. That is, they are afraid to go out into the public so people will see their face. So they do things behind closed doors. Jamil, which is the wife of Abu Lahab, had inflamed her husband's passions against the Holy Prophet to a high pitch. And so the Holy Quran states that she, or in other words, that band of hypocrites too, will taste of that fire of ignominious failure and frustration, as well as her husband. In this life and in the hereafter too, this fire is prepared for the hypocrites and those people who through their intricate cunning, conspiracies, slander and rumor mongering are twisting a rope in order to destroy a sinless, noble soul, that is our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his religion. Also, they will find that same twisted rope around their necks, and they will be strangled to death by it. This is an interesting story. Before I conclude, Abu Lahab's wife had gone into the woods to cut some firewood, and was returning home with a bundle on her back. She tied a rope on the bundle and she placed it around her forehead. So she's walking like this, coming back home. On the way, she felt tired and she leant upon a rock. And what happened was, all of a sudden, while she was leaning on the rock, the bundle slipped. And as it was falling backwards, she put her head up like this so that it wouldn't fall. And what happened? The rope came around her neck and strangled her to death. This was her end, just as the Quran predicted. This was her end. So those who choose to be like these people, please take this as a lesson. Is this the end you want? As regards the spiritual meaning, it is only necessary to remind every wife of Abu Lahab that is every hypocritical minded enemy of truth, that whatever secret plots and schemes you devise, this twisted rope will be around your neck, not only literally in this life, but metaphorically in the next life as well. So today, those who wish to annihilate the religion of Islam and to discredit the way of life of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and who are hatching secret plots to strangle the religion to death, should remember that their secret machinations machinations will be detrimental to them alone, and that same rope will encircle their necks and make them die a death humiliatingly, and Allah will disappoint them despite their efforts. Eventually, Islam shall be victorious. بارك الله ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم إنه تعالى جواد كريم ملك بروف رحيم.